Hey everyone. So today I want to talk to you about satire. Dun dun dun. So, what is it? Well, let's talk about it. Satire is basically a technique where you are taking something that's serious, something that actually is affecting people to an extent, to a great extent, something that you think is an actual problem in your community, whether that's a local community or national or global, whatever. It's a problem that you think exists, and you are poking fun at it. You are making fun of the problem and making fun of the people involved in the problem in an effort to draw attention to it, to provoke people to change. And you do this um, through very over the top means. Okay, this is not just a little joke here, a little joke there. It's really more. It's very biting. It's very insulting. You're not playing around. You're basically telling the reader. You're addressing your satire to the people that you think are either responsible or in a position to fix it. And so you are drawing attention that this is a problem. This thing exists and we need to fix it. But you're doing it in a very over the top and comical way. Because if you just scold them, if you just are like, this is a problem and it's all your fault, that's going to turn a lot of people off and people aren't going to listen to that. Satire is a way to get around that. It's a way to keep people invested in what you have to say by being so over the top and so outlandish with your ideas that they're either laughing with you or they are secretly like, oh my God, I can't believe that this was ever that big of a problem. And it draws their attention. So that's the point of satire. And as I point down here, not all satire is hilariously funny. While it is all considered humorous, some writers take a much darker tone, and while it's still technically considered humor, it's not funny. It's more like, man, that is messed up. And we're going to see a perfect example of that with Jonathan Swift's Modest Proposal. So, anyway, more on that later. So here's an example. If this is going to be a Christian nation that doesn't help the poor, either we have to pretend that Jesus was just as selfish as we are, or we've got to acknowledge that he commanded us to love the poor and serve the needy without condition, and then admit that we just don't want to do it. And this is Stephen Colbert. Now, who do you think he's attacking? I'll do my little Dora the Explorer impersonation here. Who do you think he's attacking? Um, he's basically attacking Christians. He's saying, look, we have an issue, and the issue he's talking about is the poor. We have a major issue of poverty in the United States that's growing. And he's saying, you, my audience, are hypocrites. You claim to be Christians, and one of the tenets of Christianity is to help those in need, including the poor. So you claim to be a Christian, you claim to follow the teachings of Christ who said, help the poor, and you acknowledge that there's a growing problem of poverty in the United States. You live in the United States. If you're going to claim to be a Christian and you're going to see this poverty issue around you, then do something about it. And if you don't, as he says here, then you're just claiming that you just don't want to do it. You're a hypocrite. This is incredibly insulting to anyone who fancies themselves a Christian. And that's the point. That's satire. He's using humor to draw attention to a major problem in the United States, the poverty, and he's picking his target, the Christians, and he's saying, you need to help. So, anyway, he's scolding you if you're a Christian. But that is an example of satire. Here's another one. Tomorrow you're all going to wake up in a brave new world, a world where the Constitution gets trampled by an army of terrorist clones created in a stem cell research lab run by homosexual doctors who sterilize their instruments over burning American flags, where tax and spend Democrats take all your hard-earned money and use it to buy electric cars for National Public Radio and teach evolution to illegal immigrants. Oh, and everybody's high. And again, this is humor, and what's happening here? Stephen Colbert. Well, let me do my Dora the Explorer impersonation again. So, what do you think he's talking about? Anyway, he's poking fun at conservatives, basically saying, and he was talking about the election and Democrats being in power and whatnot. And he's saying that all of these things that he listed here are fears that he claims that conservatives have about the left being in charge. And he's saying, yep, all of these fears that you're afraid of, yep, they're totally going to come to pass. Guys, he's being sarcastic, okay? He's basically saying, chill out, okay? It'll be fine. Relax. Again, satire. And I'm not trying to pick on one political side, okay? So don't be offended at me. Don't be mad at me. It's just an example. Okay. So here's another example. You have a political cartoon, which are always rife with satire. And in this political cartoon, you have a homeless person sleeping on a bench, but on the newspapers, it says that we have stock market rises, corporations are profiting, blah, blah, blah. But that's not really helping him. And so again, this is addressing the issue of income inequality or wealth inequality. Okay, so, and again, these are just examples. Don't hate on me, okay? All right. So here are some other examples, some famous shows and movies that have come out in the not too distant past that are all full of satire of one way or another. I'll let you figure out why. Okay, so I know I used a lot of political examples, but satire doesn't have to be political. It often is, and the reason it often is because politicians are often the ones that are in the best position to actually do something about the problem. So calling a politician's attention to the problem and showing them how big an issue it is often a pretty good idea to do for satire. But it doesn't always have to be political. Take, for example, Wall-E and Jojo Rabbit. Not political at all. Truman Show, not political at all. Okay, Cabin in the Woods, definitely not political. Okay, so they don't have to be political. Anyway, moving on. So, two types of satire that we'll discuss. There's Horace satire and Juvenalian satire. So, Horace satire is playful. It's meant to be kind of light-hearted. Think of like the Truman Show. Yeah, it's satire. Yeah, it's calling attention to an issue. Our over-reliance, our overexposure on social media and things like that. But it's not that big a deal that it's discussing. Okay, Juvenalian satire, on the other hand, is much darker in nature. It's going to be much more like in your face. It's going to be a lot darker. It's going to be a lot more messed up in its approach. And it's usually going to attack bigger issues. Okay, so again, the role of satire is to ridicule or criticize those that are creating the problem. Okay, criticize those that are creating the problem, and in the case of a modest proposal, an RSA, propose a solution to fix that issue, and that solution being way over the top. Okay, it intends to warn the public to change their opinions about the issue. Again, The function of satire is to point out that there is a problem that exists and we need to fix it. Okay, so some things, and I'm going to go over these pretty quickly. Here are some terms of some literary devices that you're going to want to try to implement in your paper. So I've highlighted the big ones that you really want to focus on. So those are the ones that I'm going to focus on in this video. So let's talk about irony real quick. So irony is basically an expression, a mode of expression, whether it's verbal or whatever, where the thing that you're trying to convey, the reality you're trying to convey, is different or the opposite of what actually is. So, like for example, a power station running out of power, a fire station burning to the ground. You know, these are examples of irony. Here's an example of a real-life billboard. You have on the top billboard, childhood obesity, don't take it lightly, right on top of a McDonald's billboard. That's ironic. You would not expect these two to be next to each other. Okay, hyperbole. Hyperbole is over-exaggeration. Okay, you've all heard hyperbole before. I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. You know, stuff like that. That's hyperbole, just over-exaggeration. I also want to talk about sarcasm and ridicule. So sarcasm is basically intentional insults, if you will. It's usually verbal irony, saying something is when it isn't, or saying something isn't when it is, meant to basically insult the target. So, no, you're not dumb at all. That's sarcasm. What you really meant to say was, yeah, they're a moron. Okay. Here are some examples of sarcasm. I'm not young enough to know everything, said Oscar Wilde. Basically insulting the youth and how they always think they know everything. Zombies eat brains, so you're safe. You know, insulting the person's intelligence. Oh, I'm sorry, did the middle of my sentence interrupt the beginning of yours? Typically, sarcasm takes a very innocent sounding tone, which is what you want to aim for in your paper, very innocent sounding, like, oh gosh, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. When in reality, you're like, dude, stop interrupting me, right? Okay, and then we have ridicule. Ridicule is a lot like sarcasm. The difference is that ridicule is meant to, where sarcasm is meant to just kind of poke fun at the person kind of in a more lighthearted way. Ridicule is mean, okay? Ridicule is bullying, basically. You're trying to insult the crap out of the person, okay? Whether that's their intelligence or their well-meaning intentions, or, you know, whatever it is. Think back to that first example I showed you of Stephen Colbert, where he was really laying it on pretty thick against the Christian community. Okay, that was ridicule. He was definitely not holding any punches there. We'll also look at parody a little bit, but parody is kind of like the younger sibling of satire. Parody is just meant to make fun of things for the sheer sake of making fun of them. It's not really meant to have a purpose behind just being funny. Whereas satire is like parody. It's making fun of something. But again, remember, satire is making fun of it to provoke change. Okay, and then these are just some other tools that he uses in his essay. You can take a look at those. And then here are some video clips that you can look at to get some more idea of what satire is and how it works. That's pretty much it.